Welcome back, fight fans. We're back. Got the mic in the wrong spot. Here we go. We're back with another one. Oh, it's a pay-per-view week. Oh my goodness. And this is where the fights start getting... Look at this collar. What the fuck? This is where the fights start getting pretty interesting for the year. I mean, you know, we had a couple of Vegas weeks. You know. Now we're going to be getting to the pay-per-view. UFC 298. Then we got UFC Mexico. Then we got a Vegas week. And then, of course, the chips really start to fall, of course. You know, UFC 299, Atlantic City, 300. There's another card in, a couple cards in there. Then it starts to get really crazy. But this week, of course, now we'll focus on the results of last week, UFC Vegas 86. Then we'll go into UFC 298 and the best bets going there. Speaking of the best bets, let's head on over to this other screen, of course. And we'll start talking about the best bets of last week, UFC Vegas 86. Let's head right on into how that went. So, of course, we'll open up with the triple play. The triple play, of course, is where we go through, and I can't believe I just hit the space bar to go to the next slide when I had the remote right in my hand. UFC Vegas 86, triple play. So what's the triple play? Of course, you take three of the people that got the edge last week, you put them together. That ended up being Pyfer, Body Bags Pyfer, Balaji Oki making his debut, and RoboCop Rodriguez in there. I don't know if you could tell, Joe Pyfer definitely did lose. That was an L. So it didn't really go too well this week. Well, actually, that's really not too bad. I mean, you know, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but sadly, that doesn't get you any money. So that brings us to 6-8. 6-8. Not great. Not great. Even worse. Of course, that brings us down a little bit further. 2.13 units in the hole for the triple play. Not ideal, but again, hopefully we can bring that up. But we move on to the Grand Slam. Did we win? Did we not? We did not. But Grand Slam, of course, is we get 4 of the people, 4 legs instead of 3, 4 people that got the edge last week. This week, or last week, I should say, that ended up being Ige, who brought home the win. Pyfer, again, he was in both. So, of course, we ended up losing both parlays. Marcos, that ended up being a no contest. And then Clark ended up losing as well. So, I mean, that was just an outright disaster, that parlay. Except for, of course, the one lone bright spot being Dan Ige. So that brings us to another loss, which is 7-7. We're even. You know, 7-7, all right. But because it's a 4-leg, because these are 4-leg parlays, you know, easier to make profit on these. So we're actually still in the green here. We are still in the green. That's 2.2 units up with those. And if you do the math, we are actually keeping that 007 from last week, but that's on the parlays. So we've actually got a profit of 0.07 007 in the parlays. So there's just a tiny little profit there in the parlays. You know, is it big? No, but yeah, it's basically even. So we'll take that. We'll take that. And, you know, that goes into what I said before. Like, maybe I'll switch the emphasis. Maybe I'll put 1 unit or like maybe 0.75 units on the Grand Slam. I don't know. You know, we'll see how this keeps going week after week. Maybe I'll probably adjust the numbers here and there, but we'll see how that goes. Then we had the top dog being my favorite underdog of the week last week. That was Bogdan Gushkov. He was at, I believe it was plus 100 or plus 110, one of those two, I can't remember. Pretty close fight, honestly. Struggled with the grappling of whoever he was fighting. I honestly can't remember who it was now. Started struggling with the grappling, But then he actually did get up and started to land his punches there, which is what I was hoping for. I was hoping he would start to land his punches because it was Pauga, right? Because I knew as soon as he started landing those punches on Pauga was going to start to fall apart and he was going to be able to win. At least that's what I was hoping for, because you never know. You never know with these debuts. We've been burned by these before, of course. And I mean, that even happened with us 2 weeks ago in the sniper pick. But it worked out this time. He got the win, which means we got the win, which means it's a good old 10-4, buddy. We got the win. And that brings us to another win, which, I mean, we're just stacking up these wins in the top dog with 7.1 units total up there. I mean, we are absolutely killing it with these underdogs. Just outrageously in the green there. 7.1. Amazing. Amazing stuff. That brings us, of course, to the sniper pick, my most confident pick of the week. And that was none other than Dan 50K Ige, who very much lived up to that name. Completely rock solid. I told you he was rock solid. Rock solid as rock solid can be. Really barely got hit at all. Hit Feely a lot and then knocked him out with a pretty amazing KO, I gotta say. Wasn't a spectacular one shot, like spinning back fist or uppercut. No, it was just clean. It was just as clean can be. Landed the punch. One follow-up, walk-off KO like that. Absolutely beautiful. That gets us the win. And look at that, it's another 10-4 for us. And that brings us to not a profit yet. We still didn't get our money back because, of course, that Thomas Peterson huge L that we took last time. But that brings us up to 4.07 units. And this is what I mean. I mean, we were 7-something units down last week. We gained 3 units back just in the 1 week. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's really easy to stack those units back up when you're doing the sniper pick. A little bit of a sneak preview this week, though. Probably not going to be gaining huge profit on this one, but we should get a pretty easy W. But if you want to check that out, you can go check out the best bets for this week. And of course, we'll be talking about that later in this stream. Moving on. It is... Oh, actually, no, we're not moving on. That brings us to an all-time record of 3.1. So look at that. Like I said, the system has worked. The system provides 3.1 units. And like I said, we were at 0.07 last week. So that's 3.03 units up on the all-time, well, more on the all-time record, bringing us to 3.1. So it was a good week. It was a good week, and hopefully we can keep rolling on that on over into the pay-per-view. Usually pay-per-views are, knock on wood, a little bit easier to predict and a little bit, well, much easier to get a profit on. So hopefully that holds up in this week, and that's what we will be talking about next. It's UFC 2. Oh my goodness. This is why I need to look at my screen. I mean, look at this. It's not even UFC 298. This is the recap for the Edge for last week. Of course, we're not done these recaps yet. The first one of the night was our first Edge, and that was, of course, Daniel Marcos. Sadly, he was winning, so it looked like we were on our way to getting another W here, but because it was a no contest, that means it's just a wash. We just get rid of it, which is why it's in white, but it's also kind of in green because it's not a loss, so I'll take that as a win. Take wins where you can get it, But that, of course, just stays off the record. We don't count that as a win. It's just neutral. And it was fairly close, like I said it was going to be, but Marcos was definitely winning. Then 3 fouls in the same round. Ended up being a 5-minute break from a groin strike leading to a no contest. So that sucked to see because it was pretty clear that we were going to be walking away with a win in that one. That brings us to Devin Clark. Yikes. I thought we were going to be having a decent one here, and honestly, kind of never really looked like he was getting going there at all. He just couldn't get past the striking of Prachnio, the kicks, the output in general. It was just too much, and then the wrestling kind of just didn't work for him. Disappointed, very disappointed in that one. I don't even know if I can say I really shouldn't have given him the edge there. I don't know. I feel like in general we should probably cut down on these edges a little bit just to keep the record up. But hey, whatever. Is what it is. We took the L. We move on. That was not a good one for us. But a good one in Loma, that's for sure. Loma... Actually, oh, that's right. It was actually a little closer than I thought it... Oh, actually, no, never mind. I read ahead there. Fairly slow. It was actually fairly close, kind of. I mean, Loma never looked like she was losing, but it was close because there really wasn't a whole lot of output going on. Fairly slow, even pace on the feet. Loma just giving slightly more output to win the fight. It was a pretty boring one to watch, let's be real. That was not one of the highlights of the night, that's for sure. But it gave us a win. So I'll take it and we move on. Another win. This one was way closer than I thought it was going to be. This, of course, was Oki and Kwamba. I thought with the short notice, the featherweight passed for Kwamba. I really thought this was going to be an absolute massacre. I really did not think this was going to be close at all. But lo and behold, it was, because it was a split decision, much, much closer than I thought it was going to be. Oki landed a lot more. Kwamba looked pretty good, though. I am very impressed with Kwamba, and I will be definitely remembering that name and using that forward because I was very impressed, and I'm sure he will be a pretty impressive prospect in the featherweight division, not the lightweight division, but the featherweight division for sure. In the future, that is somebody to watch out for. That's for sure. Where were we here? Yeah, I actually don't really think it should have been a split decision. I didn't think it was that close. I thought it was pretty obviously for Oki, but I will say the judges a little bit all over the place on that card. I wasn't really agreeing with a lot of things that were going on. Not necessarily the outcomes, but the scores that were being given. I was like, okay, we might have some problems later in this card. I don't know if we did, though. I don't think we did, but yeah, split decision, don't really agree with that. Then we move on to the next fight, and that was Petrosian and... can't remember. Oh yeah, Vieta, that's right. Petrosian looked great on the feet, and then it was kind of what I was worried about, which is the grappling. I did mention that, if he could hold up to the grappling, he should win. Sadly, did not hold up on the grappling, so he did not win. Rough times for Petrosian. Got taken down quite a bit, and then actually ended up getting submitted. I will say this is why he wasn't in the parlay, because I really wasn't 100% sure if he was going to be able to stop that grappling. And maybe this is why we don't include people like that in the edge. Brings the numbers down, makes me look bad. Hey, we took the L on this one. We live and we learn. Yeah. What can you do? I guess just not include him. I guess that's what we could have done. Anyway, but we move on. We move on with RoboCop. Never a doubt. I mean, Tavares definitely has a chin, and he was landing kind of well, but the pace and the power of RoboCop, just too much. Yeah, there was really no doubt he was winning that fight. So great pick there. And we move on to the next one, which was sadly another L. And sadly another one that I will say I probably shouldn't have given the edge. And it was exactly what I said. It was exactly what I said was going to be the problem, which was the new weight class for Ihor. Because I said the pace and the power that he was giving off in light heavyweight was actually pretty good. Like, it was like, oh, okay, like he's actually really not as bad as people are making him out to be. It was just that the power coming back to him was way too much at light heavyweight. So you got to figure when he goes down to middleweight, he's going to be able to handle the power well, and hopefully still has the same pace and pressure and the same chin, hopefully, at middleweight. And that is actually exactly what happened. So I guess I really shouldn't have given him the edge, given Brzezicki the edge, because, yeah, it was just too much. But, you know, I mean, there was also the circumstances that Potiera was getting into with this one, which is that, you know, he just got finished in December, then he's taking this fight on short notice. Can he lose 20 pounds that quickly, you know, and still hold up? Wasn't really sure. So was it a mistake? Was it not giving him the edge? I don't really know. Probably was a bit of a mistake giving Petrosyan and Brzezicki the edge, to be fair. But again, this is why he wasn't in the parlay again. So again, this is why both of them were not in the parlay. And that's why Devin Clark was, because I figured, okay, the grappling should give him the win. I thought he had a better chance. But yeah, this is why they were not in the parlay, these two. And again, if they weren't in the parlay, should I be giving them the edge? That's up for debate. Again, we're just starting this, so maybe I'll cut these numbers down eventually. Maybe I'll just only give ones that I'm like 80% sure instead of like 65% sure or 70% sure. You know, we'll rein that in eventually, but it is what it is. I gave him the edge, whatever. But I will say, on the other side of it, Potiera, definitely somebody to look out for. He is in the right weight class now. And this is what, oh yeah, no, I was just following what I said before. I skipped ahead. He's definitely in the right class now, and he actually is somebody to watch out for. I was honestly kind of impressed, especially compared to what he was before. Definitely impressed. So I'll be looking out for Ihor Potiera at middleweight in the future, that's for sure. Then we move on to the last two that I gave the edge to, being Dan Ige, of course, again, rock solid. Never a doubt there. And then the main event, I gave it to Pyfer, thinking, wow, okay, you know, he's younger, he's got the power, the striking ability, the pace, he's got great ground game as well. I thought he was going to be able to get it done fairly easily, maybe even get a finish. At the very least, I thought he was going to be able to get 3 out of the 5 rounds and then win on the decision. You know, didn't get it done. And this is, by the way, exactly why I ended up switching Ige to that number 1 pick, to the sniper pick, and dropped Pyfer down to the second one. But still, I mean, he was in both of the parlays. I did have a huge amount of faith in him. Just could not get it done. I mean, he definitely won those first 2 rounds. I think he could have pushed really hard to get the 3rd round, and then definitely would have dropped 4 and 5. I really think he could have done that, or maybe even, you know, like, oh, maybe the 5th round, I don't know, you know, really put it on him for the 5th round. But maybe it's just an experience issue. I'm sure he'll come back, and I'm sure he's going to get it done in the future. But all Hermanson on Saturday. So that's it for that. That's the recap. And that brings us to a record of... I mean, again, I don't know if we really need the fireworks here or not, but it's 12-10. I mean, so, you know, another even week, actually. It wasn't even a losing week. We've had 2 even weeks in a row. It was 3-3 2 weeks ago, 4-4 this week, with 1 draw and 1 no contest in those. So, again, even 4-4. I mean, it's not a losing week. We still have yet to have a losing week. So 3 non-losing weeks in a row. Technically undefeated, I guess, because I haven't lost. But still, not what you want to see. I'm not impressed with myself. But definitely on a pay-per-view, this is where I usually shine. So this should be a winning week. That's for sure. coming up. And we'll get right into that. We'll get right into that right now. Because it is UFC 298. It's Volkanovski. It's Topuria. Let's get right on into it with the first fight of the night. And that is the ladies. It is... Oh, okay. Andrea Lee. And I clicked the button and it wasn't popping up. Andrea Lee and Miranda Maverick. Let's get right on into the first fight of the night here. It's Andrea Lee. Let's open up with her, of course. She was ranked after beating Calvillo. That was a few fights ago. And now she's on a losing streak. Lost 3 in a row. That's Araujo, Barber, which was a split decision. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of thought she won that one. But it was close. And Natalia Silva, which was definitely not close at all. Took down... Oh, yeah. The first... Her main thing really is the grappling. I mean, she's not some kind of superstar wrestler like Tatiana Suarez or something like that. But she does have the grappling. She took down Macy Barber a few times, controlled her, almost submitted her, which is actually kind of impressive given what we've seen since then. So that's pretty good. Also got up really quick against Barber. So when Barber did take her down as well, and even reversed her a little bit, she did get up pretty quickly. So I don't think the grappling is an issue at all for Andrea Lee. Next up, sadly, her one downfall, or one of the downfalls with her, is the pace. She really does not have much output at all, especially if her opponent is moving forward, like Barber and Silva and Araujo. Those are all people that move forward constantly. That's why she was having such a huge problem. But she has used that toughness in the past to win fights and make them much closer. And I mean, we definitely saw that in that Macy Barber fight. I mean, that's why it was a split, is because even though she was getting pieced up pretty hard, she was bleeding a lot, she never stopped fighting, never stopped going for everything, especially with the grappling. Always has those close fights. And it was the same thing with Silva. I mean, was it a close fight? No, but she kept... I mean, she was really bloody in that one. She was getting pieced up pretty bad. But still stayed in the fight, still stayed in all 3 rounds. So I don't really see a finish on this in this fight on either side. That's just a preview of what I'm going to say later. But yeah, definitely tough. And the odds are pretty close. She's at plus 150. And of course, we'll get into Maverick's odds later. But yes, very much a close fight on the odds. Miranda Maverick. Now we get into the Maverick herself. Also had a split against Macy Barber. And that one, she definitely won. That is one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. Rivaling, a Gordon Patty kind of thing. Yeah, this was a complete robbery for sure. Absolutely absurd. But we move on. Everybody moves on. Then she ended up fighting Jasmine Jasudavicius. Lost to Jasmine there. That was a pretty clear loss, I gotta say. And then also lost to Erin Blanchfield in there as well. But, I mean, Erin Blanchfield is just on a whole other level. And we'll talk about that Jasmine loss in a little bit too. But yeah. Obviously, her main thing is the wrestling, for sure. Usually wins based on wrestling and control, with some ground and pound in there. The occasional sub attempt, nothing crazy. That's why I wrote down wrestling and not grappling or BJJ or whatever, because it's really just the wrestling. That's really her main thing. Did have some moments against Jasmine, but was controlled a lot. She was controlled a lot, and I think that more has to do with the size of Jasmine and the technique of what she uses, which we've seen in her recent fights as well after Miranda Maverick. That's what she's been using to win. Not great at striking. That's where she kind of falls apart. She's not awful, I will say. She's not awful, but she does get hit quite a bit, and she doesn't really have a high striking pace, so she's not really giving anybody a lot of danger, that's for sure. except for with the wrestling, of course. But one thing she does have is that cardio. Doesn't really slow down ever, and can grapple pretty hard for all 3 rounds. Never slows down. Again, striking pace, not super high, but the grappling pace and the cardio in general, even defensively the cardio, very good, very tight, very nice. And that's probably why she's the favorite. I mean, she's also a little bit younger too, but minus 188, there you go. Those are the odds now. But who's getting the edge here? That's what everybody wants to know. Very similar in styles and history. This is a very, very close fight. I mean, they both really mainly wrestle, and that's not even like grappling submissions and everything. They really mainly both just wrestle. Control time, ground and pound. That's what they both do. They also, neither one of them really does a whole lot of striking either. Maybe Lee does a little bit more striking, but again, that's not really what either one of them does. Actually, the age is a thing that I wanted to point out, because Lee is 9 years older. 9 years older, which is definitely past that point where it starts to be a concern and a factor in any matchup. Whoever is fighting, 9 years is a massive, massive gap. So that is something to keep in mind. Who's getting the edge? Who's getting the edge here? Nobody. I gotta say, it was just way too close. They're both... I want to choose this lightly. I mean, they're slightly inconsistent in terms of... Well, in terms of their history, I guess, you know, because they're not... Neither one of them have really been on streaks. They've kind of been like win, loss, win, win, loss, loss, win, loss. You know, there's a lot of back and forth. There seems to be a mental kind of block on both of them a little bit. They're very similar in their styles, as I mentioned. So it's just too close to call. So it's even for me. It is even for me. Nobody gets the edge here. So we move on to the second fight, which is Val Woodburn and Oban Elliott at welterweight, which is pretty important here because, especially for Woodburn here, that's very important to remember. Because, of course, his first fight was against the one and only Bo Nickel, and that was, of course, at middleweight, got knocked out in like 40 seconds, but was undefeated before that. Was definitely undefeated before that. I don't know why I said, I guess just stalling. The first thing, I mean, his entire game plan goes around this. It's his power. And I mean, I've watched the tape on YouTube of, what is it? Combat Night Pro. I watched the tape on that. That went on the wrong way. I'm gonna have a little bit of water. Damn. Really purely relies on that power. Not necessarily the most skilled person on tape, I gotta say. I'm not trying to be a dick, but it was not really that impressive to watch. Definitely powerful, though. He 100% has that power for sure. Sadly, does not have the speed. Definitely does not have the speed. Very slow, I gotta say. Like, even at middleweight, kind of slow. So you got to think when he goes down to welterweight, really going to be obvious, really going to be noticeable, very much slow. And of course, as I just said, other than that Nickel fight, just fighting at Combat Night Pro, had never even heard of that before. So definitely not a well-known promotion. We don't know how good those guys were at all. And to be honest, like I said, did not really look that good on tape there either. So wasn't really impressed by what I saw, and that's probably why he's at plus 210. Excuse me, plus 210 right now. On the other side, it's Oban Elliott, of course. And he does have a lot more of the experience, at least on a well-known platform, being Cage Warriors. I mean, we've all heard of Cage Warriors. You know, that's where Connor was, Patty. I think Molly was there too. I mean, if you're British and you're in the UFC, you were probably in Cage Warriors at some point. Not all of them, but most of them were. And this guy's actually, since amateurs, almost all of his amateur fights were in Cage Warriors as well. So very much a Cage Warriors product, very much one of those guys that is, you know, grown up in that kind of system, which is somebody you want to watch out for. Those people are people you want to look out for. And he's also actually fought at middleweight. Was not at middleweight on the Contender Series, but was at middleweight at some points in Cage Warriors. So that's something to remember too. And did have a majority decision win on the Contender Series. So that's usually that's not a great sign that it's a majority decision. Like, you barely won on the Contender Series. But I gotta say, it was a pretty crazy fight. And that other guy was pretty good as well. I think it was Cake Brito or something like that. Yeah, he was pretty good as well. So definitely got the competition there. The offense is where this guy is the best, for sure. Decent striking offense, pretty good wrestling, but just all around, it's the offense. He overwhelms people with the relentless offense, striking and grappling. And even in the third round, he was doing that. And that's after getting absolutely hammered in that second round. He came back in the third and overwhelmed him to get the win in the third. I mean, it was really impressive to watch. If you didn't see that fight on the Contender Series, you should probably watch it. I mean, it was a great fight to watch. One of the best ones on the Contender Series in that last season. Yeah, came back to win that one by majority decision. Sadly, though, the defense is a little bit more of a problem because, like I said, he did get hit quite a bit on the Contender Series. I mean, again, the other guy was pretty good. But he did, again, get hit quite a bit, and that was that second round I was talking about. He got walloped in that second round. But, again, won the first, won the third. That's all you need, 29-28. He did have his hands down quite a bit. Got hit by some pretty wild shots in there. So, you know, defense needs to shore that up a little bit, especially when you're going into the UFC now. Might not matter as much in this matchup because he's going against somebody who has a similar amount of experience. But if he wins this and then moves on, you know, that's where it starts to get a little bit iffy, where you really need to rein that in, be more careful like that. But thankfully, he's tough. He's got that chin. He is, of course, the Welsh gangster. So he's definitely a gangster. That is for damn sure, because that was one hell of a fight on the Contender Series. And he really did take some heavy shots in that second round there. Rocked multiple times. And then, like I said, rallied back to get that decision win. Unbelievable. Like, it was crazy to watch. Amazing stuff there. Which is probably why, again, he's at minus 275. So, who's getting the edge here? Is it Val Woodburn? Is it Oban Elliott? I mean, it's pretty close on paper, because again, Val's only loss was to Bo Nickel, and before that was completely undefeated. Oban Elliott does have a loss here and there. And Woodburn was undefeated again. Remember, whole time at middleweight. This is his first time moving down to welterweight. So that is also something to remember, that he was getting hit quite a bit, you know, at middleweight. He can take it there. So I'm sure he can probably take it down to welterweight. But yeah, maybe and you know what? Maybe he has gotten much better since then. I mean, it was Bo Nickel. That was his one loss. Maybe he's better than we think. And maybe the new weight will help. Sometimes it helps people. But then on the other side, Elliott could just use the pace, the chin, and the skill set, really, to get the decision win. So who do I think is going to get the win here? Who's going to get the edge? It's Oban Elliott. I got to go with Oban Elliott here. I mean, honestly, and I'm not trying to be a dick here, but Woodburn just doesn't really seem very good. I was not impressed by the skills very much. and I found him very slow. Even at middleweight, I thought he was slow. And I was impressed by how fast Elliott was, and then the pace of him as well. I just don't know if Woodburn can really handle that kind of pace. So yeah, I think Elliott should be able to land enough and do enough to win a decision, maybe even a KO. We'll see. But I think more likely probably just outpaces him to a decision, getting his first UFC win. That's what I think. So he's getting the edge. Moving on to the next one. It is Josh Quinlan and somebody Barlow. I forget his name right now, and I didn't write any of that down. It's Barlow. Is it Logan Barlow? I think it's Logan Barlow. We'll see. Either way, Barlow was actually supposed to be fighting Kinoshita on this one, but he had to pull out, and Quinlan stepped in on late notice. So yeah, that's what happened. That's how we got to where we are. First up, let's talk about Quinlan. He's 6-1 now. Only loss ever to Trey Waters in the last fight. Before that was undefeated. But again, 6-0, or 6-1 now. That's not a huge number, but still impressive. The interesting fact, though, is that loss, Trey Waters, very similar to Barlow. He's very, very similar. Similar in his striking and very similar in his size. So could we see a repeat? I'm not sure, but that is a very interesting note right there, that Trey Waters very similar to Barlow in this fight. His main thing, of course, obviously, if you watch him, is the striking. I mean, he always, without fail, has dropped or stunned his opponent. He is a little slower. He's not the fastest guy, but he is very powerful, which leads to that stun and that knockdown, whatever, every single time, or just straight up knockout. Very, very powerful striking. He doesn't have the pace, though, and he really did not throw much against Jason Witt, which was his other UFC fight other than Waters. He did knock him out, though, but the pace was not very high, and that was against Jason Witt, who is no longer in the UFC because he was not very good. And on the other side, again, Waters, who he lost to, that's kind of why he lost. He had a very low, slow pace. Waters took advantage of that, and his size, to then win the decision. And Quinlan actually slowed down even more throughout that fight, because it was a decision. He even slowed down even more. So he was slow to begin with in the pace, and then slowed down even further. So not a great sign for the pace, but you never know. They can improve that. He is very explosive, though, of course. The power I mentioned before, he is very explosive. And he really doesn't throw a whole lot, but he is very explosive with the wrestling and with the striking. So somebody you want to watch out for, and you got to mind your P's and Q's or else you're going to get knocked out. That is for damn sure. Which is probably why the odds are somewhat close. Plus 162. I mean, is that really all that close? Not really sure. But plus 162, it's still in the ones. It's nothing crazy like we're going to see soon with Rinya fighting. That is not a close fight on the odds. That's for sure. Next up, it's Barlow. Again, I think it's Logan. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember. Oh, shit. I did not write my notes down for this one, so hopefully I can remember what I wrote here. 7-0, 5 first-round finishes. I did write that, so that's pretty impressive. He's undefeated, like Quinlan was before the last one. Like I said, 5 first-round finishes. Always impressive when you see that. And that was also on the Contender Series. First round KO of Raheem Forrest on the Contender Series. Very impressive. Which brings us to the first point, of course, which is the striking. He was super slick, quick hands on the Contender Series, and has a lot of power. So definitely the striking, just like Quinlan, I guess, is what you want to watch out for. So definitely a banger coming up in this one. The second point, again, I didn't write my notes for these next two, but he was pretty fast. Again, super slick, quick hands. So the speed is very much on display for Barlow here. Very fast. I think he was like movement as well. Defensively, the speed was pretty evident as well. So speed all around, at least from what I remember. Again, I sadly did not write my notes for that point. Next up was the size. And that actually is, I do remember that because like I said, very similar to Trey Waters. He's tall, he's long, difficult to deal with. Fairly big for welterweight. I mean, he's nothing crazy. He's not like a Michel Pereira or something like that, but he's definitely still on the bigger, longer side of welterweight. That's for sure. Which is, of course, why he's at minus 200. Because, again, I didn't really even have a negative point there because I haven't really seen too many negatives there. So he's at minus 200 as it stands. So who's getting the edge here? The button didn't work. Who's getting the edge here? I mean, on paper, it's pretty close. It's very, very close. Quinlan relies solely on power. I mean, he could get a KO. That's what he does. But that's kind of all he does. So who's getting the edge here? I mean, I kind of have to go with Barlow. I really do, because he's a lot more active. He doesn't have to rely on the KO like Quinlan does. And like I said, he's very similar to Trey Waters. He's tall, he's long, he's got power, but he's also, like I said, a lot more active, and a lot more active than Waters really as well. So he's a lot more active, and Barlow got hit actually pretty hard on the Contender Series a couple of times and didn't really even react. So I think he's going to be okay in this fight. I really do. So I'm giving the edge to Barlow on this one. That brings us to the next one, which is, it's a light heavyweight bout. I think it's Mingyang Zhang. I believe that is his name, Mingyang Zhang, against Brendan Ribeiro. Had to do that. Very exciting fight. I am, in terms of like straight up violence, power on display, this is the fight that you want to watch. This is what you want to watch right here. Mingyang Zhang, Brendan Ribeiro, both of them making their debut, and they were actually, funny enough, supposed to fight each other in December, but it's happening right now in February. So we'll open up with Mingyang Zhang, Road to UFC, one of my favorite shows to watch. I love that shit. I love Road to UFC. I really, really do. And I will talk about it as much as I can because I love it. He is 16-6, which doesn't sound like a great record, but those losses are actually a while ago. And, you know, it's that regional China scene where they just go crazy. I mean, they fight so much. And they kind of fight out of their weight classes a lot. I mean, it's a crazy scene over there in China. It really is. And of course, again, that was a while ago, so he was younger, 16-6. Anyway, all fights of those 16-6, except for 3 of them, ended in the first round. That is straight up insanity, which is why I'm telling everybody, watch this fight. Watch this fight because it is going to be insane. 9 first-round finishes in a row. 9 first-round finish streak going into this fight. How insane is that? Including George Tokos, or Tuco, as they like to call him, on Road to UFC, which was, again, absolutely insane, that fight. Incredible. And George Tokos, very good actually. He could have actually easily ended up here as well. I mean, if he would have won that fight, he would probably be fighting today instead of Mingyang Zhang. So he's very, very good as well. And by the way, biggest underdog on that card on Road to UFC. He was something like plus 500 or some shit like that. It was something absolutely insane, Mingyang Zhang, and he pulled it off. Got the win, and honestly looked like he was the massive favorite because it wasn't even really close. Well, it kind of was because there was a couple of big shots landed, but ultimately He landed so much that he looked like he was a big favorite. Which is why, of course, we're going to talk right away about the striking of this guy. Oops. I gave away what the second point was. Trigger happy on the remote here. Scary power and accuracy and speed. I mean, this guy's striking is unbelievable, especially for light heavyweight. You don't normally see guys that are this fast, this powerful, and this just all around amazing at the striking. I mean, this guy for real is somebody to look out for. I cannot wait to see this. I really can't. I mean, I'm so excited to see this fight. The striking is unbelievable. And then, of course, the movement as well. He moves so fast. He is so fast for a heavy guy. I mean, really reminds me of either, like a Cyril Gane or a Tom Aspinall or even like a Jailton Almeida. He is so fast. He is not like any light heavyweight you see out there, except for, of course, the two guys I just mentioned. And Aspinall isn't even a light heavyweight, which just speaks to how good Aspinall is. But this isn't about Aspinall, so we'll move on. Yeah. Absolute beast. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy. And like I said, it's not even about the power. It's not even about the power, the striking, and all that. It's the fact that he can move that fast, and he's got the pace, and he's got the striking, and he's got the power, the accuracy, the speed. I mean, it's unreal. He big guys do not ever move like this. So it is something to behold, and I cannot wait for everybody to see this guy. Yeah. Very, very impressive. Very impressive. And he is a slight favorite right now at minus 138. Moving on to Brenderson Ribeiro here. He's 15-5, 3-2 in his last 5. Those 2 losses, by the way, 2 first-round KO losses. Yikes. Especially in this matchup. Big yikes. But he did beat an undefeated Bruno Lopez by first-round KO on the Contender Series. Also, funny enough, the biggest underdog on that card. So we've got 2 big, huge underdogs in their last fights that ended up getting first-round KOs. Crazy coincidence, but maybe that's why they put them together. Because, again, this is going to be an absolute banger of a fight, that is for sure. His main asset, of course, is the huge power. He's not all that quick. Maybe not even really that accurate. Oh, actually, no, he is accurate. He's really not all that quick, but he is accurate, that's for sure. Sadly, the defense did not really stack up on that Contender Series one. Even though he did get the win, he got hit quite a bit. He was pushed into the fence. Not too fast. He moves decently well, but again, not that fast, gets hit quite a bit. Could be a problem, especially in this fight. And, I mean, this really goes, I guess, to the defense as well. He's a bit reckless. He really is. That can work to a lot of people's advantage. Not sure if it's going to work here. Has an offense-heavy approach, so he kind of just walks forward into exchanges trying to land bombs, which, of course, means that sometimes you're going to walk into a couple of punches, and maybe that happens here as well. He's at plus 110 right now, so pretty close on the odds. Who's getting the edge here? Well, I mean, obviously it's pretty close because they're both making their debut, let's be real. Both pretty close on paper, but and they actually have really the same mentality too. They just walk into things. They're just crazy offensive people, which is why don't miss this fight. This fight is going to be amazing. Both are capable of those first round KOs, but who do I think is going to get it? I mean, I gotta go with my guy from the road to UFC, Mingyang Zhang. Ribeiro could land a bomb and finish it, of course, but I mean, from what I've seen, Zhang is just much better than that. He is very, very good. He's really clean on the feet. He's much faster. He has better defense and a better chin. And again, like I said, point to remember, Ribeiro lost his last 2 fights by first round KO. So, and again, remember what I said about Zhang as well. 9 fights in a row now, first round finishes. So 9 first round finishes in a row, 2 first round KO losses in his last 5 fights. I mean, I think that just sets it up perfectly for my point. So I'm going with Mingyang Zhang on this one. We move on to another road to UFC prospect, Rinya Nakamura, and I believe it's Carlos Vera. Interesting. At bantamweight, of course. And Rinya actually was supposed to be fighting Brady Hiestand in this one. Hiestand pulled out, so we got Carlos Vera instead, which is actually an even easier matchup. I mean, obviously I just gave away what my pick is going to be, but yeah, this is probably an even easier road, pardon the pun, for him. 8-0 for Rinya Nakamura, road to UFC champ. And I said this last week, best fighter for sure, hands down, to come off of the road to UFC. Amazing guy. Beat Fernie Garcia in his debut. That's why I was talking about him last week, because Fernie Garcia, of course, fought last week. And why is he so good? Because he's extremely well-rounded. And I don't normally put well-rounded in these slides here, because usually they kind of specialize striking, grappling, you know. But this guy, I mean, he is a world champion wrestler, but that he got most of his wins by first round KO, because people are so scared of the wrestling that they stop paying attention to the hands and get knocked the fuck out. And he is like sleeping these guys. It's not even TKOs. He is full on knocking these guys out. I mean, this guy is absolutely insane on striking and the wrestling, of course. And not only is the wrestling insane, he got a key lock also on the road to UFC, which is not a common submission. So that is also pretty impressive. So seriously, striking, amazing. Wrestling, amazing. BJJ, amazing. This guy is as well-rounded as it gets. And look at that, he's also aggressive, which is why he won so easily on the road to UFC, because they really just couldn't deal with it. They could not deal with it at all. Always moving forward, somewhat recklessly, I will say, but only reckless when he knows that he can be reckless. So when he knows, you know, you're not going to touch me, I'm just going to walk forward, I don't care. That's what he does. So he's pretty smart about it, but still, you know, I mean, it's still in the green. I mean, it's obviously a huge point for him. And just like Mingyang Zhang, but maybe more so, beast. Absolute beast. Absolute fucking animal, like I said. Super well-rounded. I think future champ. I really do. Again, I don't normally say that, but I really do think Rinya Nakamura, future champ. And yeah, I mean, went all 3 rounds against Garcia, by the way. Never slowed down a single time. Just always relentless with his pace. That is very rare to see somebody like this, which is why I'm saying, for real, I think he's a future champ. Maybe like, you know, 4 years down the road, maybe. But future champ right here, Rinya Nakamura, which is exactly why minus 1,200. I mean, there's nothing really else I can say other than that. I mean, it's, yeah. Carlos Vera, I mean, he lost to Brad Katona on Tough this season. That's already not a great start. He does have some striking. He's got the good techniques. He's pretty accurate. He usually moves pretty well, but still, I mean, I'm not just, you know, again, I'm not trying to be a dick here. I'm trying to be nice, if anything, by giving him this green, you know, in the striking here, because honestly, the striking really isn't even all that great either. Not much power. The defense also not really that great, but I had to give him some kind of good point here. I mean, I don't want to just completely shut him out with red points here. That's not cool. The wrestling, I mean, he was taken down multiple times and controlled by Katona. BJJ offense and defense was okay. So I don't know if he's going to get submitted, but he's definitely going to get taken down if he doesn't get knocked out. And then the pace, good lord, the pace, also not great either. Slow pace. Really not great. Moves backwards a lot too, which hurts pace as well. So yikes. And which is obviously why he's at plus 700. Pretty rough. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend like this one is close. There's no suspension of disbelief here. I mean, this is not close. This is a step down in competition, honestly, for Rinya Nakamura here. I think Fernie Garcia is a lot better than Carlos Vera. Yeah, I would just say bet the house on this man. I mean, seriously. So you can already kind of tell where my sniper pick is going to be. It's going to be Rinya Nakamura. I mean, this is not close at all. So we move on to the next one. It is Rogerio de Lima and Tafa. Is that his name? Is there another name in there? I feel like this guy has a super long name and I just forgot one of his names. I'm not quite sure. But I'm just going with De Lima because that's what I wrote down. Heavyweight, of course. I mean, look at this guy. Is he going to be a light heavyweight even? I don't think so. He's 4-3. Restart that. He's 4-3 in his last 7. The wins came against Maurice Green, who's in the PFL. Ben Rothwell, not in the UFC anymore. Arlovsky, kind of old. Waldo Cortez Acosta, okay, that's a decent win. And then the losses, Alexander Romanov, okay. Well, actually, we haven't seen Alexander Romanov in a while. I just realized that. Blagoy Ivanov, yikes. And, of course, that flying knee from Derek Lewis. Who would have thought that one? That was his other loss, of course. His main thing, falling apart here. Main thing, of course, is the striking. He's got pretty good kickboxing, especially for an older heavyweight. Has decent power. I mean, is he going to be knocking dudes out like Derek Lewis? I don't think so, but the striking is still good, especially for an older guy. The wrestling is also good, though, I gotta say, especially for heavyweight. I mean, they're not necessarily known for their wrestling unless you're Daniel Cormier. Wins in his recent fights because of that wrestling and the control. Lifted Cortez Acosta up into the air a couple of times. So he's definitely got the wrestling here, that is for sure. But, as I mentioned, at least I think I mentioned, older. So he does have the age, and that is starting to go against him for sure. You can be older at heavyweight and still get the wins. I mean, just look at Arlovsky. And even, good Lord, Alexei Olenek is the perfect example of that. I mean, he was winning, and he's like 42 or something like that. And he's not even that old. So, he could. I'm not saying it's a massive factor, but it's something to look out for. But eventually, the chin and the reflexes go down. The speed leaves you as well. So that's always a problem after a while. And he's at minus 150. So, I mean, he is a favorite, but only slightly. And it probably is because of that age as well. On the other side, of course, is one of the Tafa brothers, Justin Tafa. He actually came into the UFC at 3-0. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. That's like Bo Nickel level insanity. 3-0. And he is now 7-3. So obviously, not as promising as Bo Nickel, but still. 3 first-round KOs in a row. Austin Lane, Parker Porter, and Harry Hunsucker. I mean, not the highest level of competition there. I mean, if you don't get a first-round KO as a heavyweight there, you're probably not very good. And he did, sadly, though, lose to Jared Vanderaa. I don't know how you lose to Jared Vanderaa. And Carlos Felipe. That's actually a somewhat reasonable loss, but still. That's his history. The striking, obviously I'm going to talk about the striking. He's a Tafa. He's got the accuracy. He's got a lot of power. He's actually pretty fast for heavyweight, I will say. Even though he doesn't look like he would be fast, he is very fast, actually. His hands, at least, are very fast. The grappling, though. I'm not saying... Because there's a question mark there for a reason. Because we actually haven't really seen him try and grapple. So I don't actually know if he can, defensively grapple much. Because we haven't really seen it, to be honest. So it's kind of hard to tell. But that's also not usually a good sign. Because if they haven't even done anything offensively with grappling, they're probably not going to show it that well defensively either. So But the question mark is still there. Who knows? We don't know. And the experience, as I said, came in at 3-0 to the UFC. And I mean, based on the list that I just mentioned, I mean, of his wins, doesn't really have the greatest history there. So that is definitely something to watch out for and pay attention to. And if you've also been paying attention to the losses, all the losses, none of them are in the UFC anymore. So that is always a concern. When the people that you lost to aren't even around anymore, yikes. Yikes. And that's why he is the underdog at plus 120 here. But who's getting the edge here? Who is getting the edge? I mean, it's a pretty close fight, let's be real. De Lima, fairly well-rounded, very experienced, could win decision easily. Tafa, obviously the younger guy, faster, power, you know, could get a KO in there. That's definitely within the realm of possibility. So who's getting the edge? It's even. It's even. I just can't give an edge on this one. They're both of those outcomes seem equally plausible to me. The decision for De Lima, the knockout for Tafa, either one of those things could happen. So, yeah, I'm just on the fence on this one. You combine that, especially, of course, with the age of De Lima and the inexperience and inconsistency of Tafa as well. Very much difficult to tell who is taking home the win. So we're going even. Next up, it is the ladies. It's Lemos. Oh, Amanda Lemos, Mackenzie Dern, strawweight. Lemos, of course, was actually supposed to be fighting Tatiana Suarez in this one, but the unbreakable has, of course, been broken again, and Suarez had to pull out. So that sucks, but here we are with actually really another good women's fight. I mean, I can't really complain too much. Did I want to see Tatiana Suarez again? Of course I did, but you love Mackenzie Dern, and Amanda Lemos is a pretty exciting fighter as well. Both of them are exciting, actually, so I think we're still headed up for a good women's fight anyway. I'm not too mad about it. It's just kind of upsetting to see Tatiana Suarez pull out again. I mean, come on. We need to see her become a champ by the end of the year. That's what I'm picturing, honestly. So yeah, anyway, Amanda Lemos, Mackenzie Dern. We'll start with Amanda Lemos, of course. Coming off that title shot against Zhang Weili, she lasted all 5 rounds. That is something. That really is something. I mean, you know, it's like, okay, well, she lasted 5 rounds. I mean, she didn't do well in those 5 rounds, but she lasted all 5 rounds. It's a win. It's a win in a way, you know. I mean, Zhang Weili is that good. So lasting all 5 rounds is still impressive, especially when people were talking about your cardio and the fact that you're one-dimensional before. So, I mean, the fact that you lasted all 5 rounds, that's impressive. Obviously, the striking is her main thing. Huge power, pretty slick techniques and combos. She knocked out Marina Rodriguez, which pretty impressive considering Rodriguez, I don't think, had ever been finished before that. So really, and I mean, that is her thing. Rodriguez strikes. So pretty impressive that she was able to knock her out, or at least TKO her. And was actually somewhat competitive on the feet with Weili. She did have her moments here and there. She stumbled Weili a couple of times. Nothing crazy, but did stumble her a bit. Forced Weili to grapple a lot more, which is, of course, how Weili won that fight. But not much output. Not much output in terms of the striking. Kind of relies on that power, that is for sure. The wrestling is obviously where she falls apart. I mean, like I said, that's what Weili did for 5 rounds. That is how she lost. Got taken down by her pretty easily, I would say. Did have a pretty deep submission attempt there for a couple seconds. And also had a great submission attempt against Rodriguez. So maybe, you know, the BJJ is there. I don't think she's going to get submitted by Dern. Could be. Dern is pretty great at that. But seems like the BJJ is there. It just seems like the wrestling, not really there. Tried to get a takedown against Rodriguez and was reversed. Rodriguez not necessarily much of a grappler, so a little bit concerning that she was reversed like that easily. And then, of course, taken down that many times by Wei Li. Durable, though. I mean, like I said, 5 rounds against Wei Li. If that doesn't say durability, I don't know what does. So, very hard to finish. Great with submissions. Has a great chin with the striking as well. Amazing cardio. So, the durability she's got, that's for sure. I'm starting to lose it now. Minus 130 is where she's at. So she is a slight favorite headed into this one. On the other side, Mackenzie Dern. You gotta love Dern. Peace out, Dern. I mean, you gotta love her. Great performances against top-ranked. Close loss. Very close. I mean, like, seriously, like, these losses are paper thin. They really are. Because some people even thought that maybe... Well, actually, I don't know if they thought she won against Rodriguez. I didn't think so. But it was very close. A win over Tisha Torres. I think that was also a pretty close one. That might have even been a split. I can't remember. And then majority decision loss to Yan Xiaonan. And to be honest, I kind of thought she won from what I remember. Or did I? I think so. I think I had the win for Dern on that one. So majority decision loss. Very, very close again. So she really is having these really close fights with top level people in the division. And she has a win over Angela Hill with striking, by the way, which was the craziest part of that. Obviously, though, her main asset is the grappling. Amazing BJJ. Pretty decent wrestling, but nothing crazy. Like, she's not suplexing people or any shit like that. But she did take down Jessica Andrade. Not a whole lot of people can do that. I mean, Erin Blanchfield can. But other than that, not a whole lot of people can do that. So that is definitely her main thing. The defense, though, I gotta say, the defense is a bit rough. It really is. The striking offense, not terrible. I mean, the striking offense, I should say, not terrible. So her striking offense isn't awful, but the defense, though, not good. Not good at all. She gets hit a lot, and she gets hit hard. So the chin definitely on display, but I mean, goodness, she gets hit a lot. And of course, that actually really is because of this, which she's completely relentless with the offense. Always trying to get offense going, never stops moving. Thankfully has a great chin. Was TKO'd by Andrade, but was absolutely smoked multiple times. Dropped 4 times. She got dropped 4 times, still managed to fight back. Somewhat keeping it close after that. Kept getting back up and everything, but, was TKO'd. But she was not knocked out. She just got TKO'd because the ref was like, yeah, this isn't going well. And fair enough. I'm not even saying that was an early stoppage. I think it was pretty fair. But the fact that she was knocked down 4 times and stumbled all over the place, I mean, that tells you how great that chin is. Which, of course, really could come into play here. I think it will come into play here. That's, I'm just guessing. Plus 110 on the odds. I think, obviously, getting hit that much is probably why she's the underdog in this one. So, who's getting the edge here? It's Amanda Lemos. It's Mackenzie Dern. Very close fight. Really, really close fight. I really want to emphasize that. Lemos could get a KO, or TKO, I guess, or win with a decision with the striking, shut down the grappling, get the striking going, with a knockdown even. I mean, if you get a knockdown in 2 other rounds, you're probably winning those 2 rounds, winning the decision, so already that's a 29-28, so I really could even just see that happening. Dern could also get a sub. She's really good on the ground, or maybe just control her on the ground for a decision. Lemos hasn't really done well with the wrestling. I could see that as well. So who's getting the edge? I mean, it's pretty even again. It's a really even one. It could go either way. Both kind of one-dimensional, but kind of not. Like, it's tough to call them one-dimensional because, again, Dern was outstriking Angela Hill, which is pretty insane. But she gets hit a lot, so I can't really say she's super well-rounded. And then on the other side, Lemos, has some submission skills, has okay wrestling, but then again, is taken down regularly and controlled. So I can't really call her well-rounded either. They're kind of both somewhat one-dimensional in that way. And they're both kind of inconsistent as well. Because there have been times where I'm like, wow, Lemos is really, really good. Like that fight against Rodriguez, I was like, wow, that was great. And then, of course, Dern, the fight against Hill, I was like, my God, that was amazing. And then even the fight against Yan Xiaonan, I mean, majority decision loss, easily could have won that one. And we see Yan Xiaonan fighting for the belt now. So, I mean, they're both really all over the place, which is why I can't put an edge on this one. It's even. That brings us to the main card, which opens with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez and who's the other one? Roman Kopylov, of course. Or Kopylov, I believe it's pronounced. Anthony Hernandez actually was supposed to be fighting Ikram Aliskerov in this one, or should I say was going to be fed to Ikram Aliskerov in this one at middleweight. But Roman Kopylov on this one came in somewhat short notice, I think. I mean, it's been up for at least a couple weeks, so he's not that late notice, but still, was not the original opponent. So we'll open up with Fluffy Hernandez. Subbed pretty high-level opponents, actually, and always gets something locked in, which is why I put the submissions up there. I mean, he submitted Rodolfo Vieira, like multiple-time BJJ world champion Rodolfo Vieira. But that was, of course, mostly because of his pace and because of his striking as well. But still submitted him and did it to, I think, Barrio as well. I think that's where he got a submission as well. I can't remember how he won that one, but yeah. That is his main thing, though. The defense, not good. Not good. The striking offense, I will say, not bad. Really not bad at all. Broke last two opponents' ribs, by the way. Oh, yeah, Edmund Shabazian. That was the other one. Broke Shabazian's ribs. Broke, I think it was no. Who was before? Barrio. Broke Barrio's ribs as well. So broke the ribs of his last two opponents. Pretty insane. But he gets hit a lot. He gets hit so much. And always gets into some really bad spots and somehow just turns it around. That's his thing. He turns it around and wins the fight. Which is why, of course, I had to put down, he's a dog. Absolute dog is Fluffy Hernandez. Has been absolutely dominated, truly, in his recent fights. Like, seriously, we're not even close. Yet somehow on a 4-fight win streak. I mean, even Shabazian was just ripping him apart in those first 2 rounds. And then still managed to win. Rodolfo Vieira, I think, was actually beating him a little bit at some points. Barrio was winning a little bit at some points. And there was another one in there, too, where he was definitely losing the fight. And still somehow won. The cardio really is what's absolutely insane. It's completely outrageous. And his toughness. He uses his cardio and his toughness as a weapon. And it's crazy how well that works. Because he really almost always loses the first round. And sometimes even the second. And still somehow wins. I have no idea how he's doing it. Except for the fact that, of course, the cardio and the toughness. I mean, it's unreal. And I even wrote down here, nightmare level cardio. I mean, he is an absolute nightmare to face. Yeah, this is not an easy out at all. That's for sure. Which is why, I mean, some people might be shocked by this, going against somebody from Dagestan, even though he's a striker. He's a minus 250 favorite. Minus 250 favorite against Roman Kopylov. Not a lot of people are going to be a favorite against Kopylov. So that is pretty impressive. On the other side is, of course, Roman Kopylov. Has looked extremely good recently. Was beaten by Duraev and was submitted by Carl Robertson. Yikes. But other than that, especially in his last few fights, has looked like, oh shit, okay, yeah, this guy is going to be in the top 15 real quick. That's what he's been looking like soon. But before that, recently, I mean, but before that, bit rough with Duraev and Robertson there. The striking is for sure his main thing. Insanely technical striking, very accurate, all three levels, head, body, legs, mixes it up really well, lots of power. I mean, the striking is, you know, pretty much as good as it gets. I mean, very, very impressive. And that also has really a lot to do with his speed. He is really quick for middleweight. Very, very fast striking for middleweight. Which, again, probably a huge problem in this fight. The BJJ, that is a question, though. How is his BJJ? Is it going to hold up? I'm not really sure. Because he was... I mean, he has great takedown defense. Because he's from Dagestan, so he's hard to get down. But he was submitted by Robertson, who's not in the UFC anymore. So, you know, was that just a one-time mistake? Is he actually just not good at defending submissions? Can't really tell, because it's really only been that one time where it was a problem, and you got to get him down there. So that's why I put the question there. I'm sure it's going to be a factor, but I don't know how he's going to react to that. So I had to put the question mark there. And of course, that's why the odds are at plus 200, because Hernandez has the submissions. He's got the pace. I can definitely see a world where Hernandez gets the win. But who's getting the edge in my mind? Who is getting the edge? Very close fight. Very, very close fight. Both of them fought Josh Fremd. That's the point of comparison here. Fluffy was 29-28, so they both went to a decision here. Actually, no. Fluffy got the win, 29-28. And Kopylov completely dominated him with striking. So, you know, is it really as one-sided as they're talking about? It's definitely not as one-sided as the odds are suggesting. So, you know, it's a little bit closer, a lot closer than they're making it out to be. That's for sure. Because, I mean, if Kopylov can dominate and KO Josh Fremd that easily, and Fluffy was a 29-28 against him, and really just because of his pace, that's concerning. I could see Kopylov dominating with striking, KO, or decision. I could easily see that. But I could also see Hernandez getting a submission, or maybe just grappling him and using his cardio for a decision. I could see that as well. And maybe this is a mistake. Maybe I'm making a mistake here by giving out an edge. Maybe I should just make this even because it's that close. But honestly, I just don't like seeing Hernandez getting into those bad spots. It works against some people. But when you go against the upper echelon of people, and I think the Roman Kopylov is in that upper echelon of people, which he will show this weekend, I think. When you're in that upper echelon, you can't get hit like that constantly and expect to come back and win. It just doesn't work anymore. So is this the fight where we're going to see that turnaround? I think so, but you know, in the future, that is not going to work for Hernandez anymore, and it's gonna stop working eventually. Could this be the fight? I think so. I just think Kopylov's too good, too clean at striking, and seems to have great wrestling defense too. I mean, he might get caught in a submission, but I think he should be okay. And he might also, like I said, he might just have an issue with the onslaught that is Hernandez. Could be a problem, but I'm going out on a limb. Again, maybe I should have just made this part even, but I'm going out there with Kopylov. That brings us to the next one. First, extremely exciting, high-level, super high-level fight of the night. That is Merab. Whoops, didn't press my button. That's Merab. It's Henry Cejudo at bantamweight, basically fighting for a title shot here. I mean, I don't really know what else would be coming after this. Well, actually, I guess Sandhagen is in line too as well. But I would imagine this is for the title shot. First up, Merab. Absolute domination of Petr Yan in the last fight. And by the way, yes, of course, the whole story was the wrestling, but he actually was kind of outstriking Yan a little bit at times as well. The striking, not bad. I mean, really, definitely not just the wrestler, which is what people always talk about. Which is what I'm going to talk about first, of course, because you got to talk about it first. Pretty unbelievable wrestling, obviously, but doesn't even need to get a takedown, and he showed that actually against Aldo and a little bit against Yan as well, where he doesn't actually need the takedown. He just needs to control you against the fence, and that's what he keeps doing. He throws out 30, 40 takedowns. I mean, it really is insane. I've never seen anybody else be able to do that. 30, 40 takedowns, that's stupid. Like, you can't even, I don't think you can even do that in a video game. I don't think you can even do that. So, absolutely unreal. But yeah, it's more so the control and the clinch that wins him these fights like that. Again, Aldo, he never got a takedown, but he dominated along the fence like that. Something to remember. The striking, though, I mean, I'm not saying he's bad, and maybe I shouldn't have even made this red, but it's definitely his weaker spot. He can strike decently well. Like I said, he actually did damage Yan with kicks and the odd jab. I mean, he might have even done a little bit better than Sandhagen did, which is pretty crazy to think, against Yan with the striking. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive. It really is. It's just that if somebody is faster than him, then he's definitely going to get hit, because he still, it's still not his main thing, so he will get hit, but the striking, still not bad. Still not bad. Oh yeah, the reason I put it as red is because Cejudo is so fast, so I figured, well, he's going to get hit. That's why I did that. Now I remember. But still, technique good. I mean, he did some damage against Yan. That's impressive. But I mean, yes, it's a pun. That's his nickname. But there is no more fitting nickname than this. He really is an absolute machine. Greatest cardio and pace I've ever seen, truly. I literally never stops moving and throwing anything. I mean, usually obviously going for takedowns, but even just the striking pace too is just, I really don't know how he does it. I mean, it's absolute insanity. Like, it really is truly, and I actually do mean this, the greatest cardio and pace I've ever seen. There is nobody that even comes close to this, which is why he is the favorite at minus 200, because people know that. And of course, he is a little bit younger than Cejudo as well. Cejudo, the king of cringe himself, Triple C. Pretty well-rounded. I mean, yes, obviously he's more well-known for the wrestling, of course, being the Olympian that he is, but the fast hands and the fast kicks that he uses I don't think that gets enough credit. He is actually a very technical striker. He really is. Doesn't really have power, and I think that's why people overlook his striking a little bit. But the technique, the actual point fighting of it all, and I don't, we don't like using the word point fighter. It's a negative connotation, as they say. But that's kind of what he's doing. He's not knocking people out like that, not at bantamweight at least, but it's there and it scores points. But I will say, even though he's very well-rounded, he did get taken down by Aljo a couple of times. He did. He did get taken down by Aljo. He doesn't deal well with pressure, though, I will say. And not, not title, main event pressure. That's not what I'm talking about. Whenever I talk about pressure, it's the forward pressure. He does not handle forward pressure well. Did not do well against Aljo. Whenever Aljo was moving forward, Cejudo was moving back, and he was getting hit. He was getting taken down, pushed into the fence. Did not do well with the pressure. And he kept getting pushed back and overwhelmed. That's what Aljo did. That's how he won. That's what he did to win the fight. And I mean, who has more forward pressure than Merab? Nobody. The fight IQ, though, is almost unrivaled. I would say he is one of the smartest fighters in UFC history in terms of fight IQ. Truly. He rarely ever makes mistakes. And I mean, it was kind of maybe even just one mistake that lost him that Aljo fight. If he wouldn't have gotten taken down, I believe it was, at the end of the first round, he actually probably would have won that fight on the cards. Even though I kind of disagree that Aljo, I kind of think Aljo won more than that. But, you know, if he wouldn't have gotten taken down in that first round, based on that one mistake, he actually really could be the champion right now. Plus 162. Plus 162. And I think, again, that's more so a factor, you know, like it's probably, you know, the winning streak of everything, the winning streak of Merab, combined with the fact that Aljo was the one that beat him. And of course, Aljo and Merab are training partners. So I do see why the odds are like that. But who's getting my edge? Who's getting my edge here? Is it Merab? Is it the King of Cringe? Is it Cejudo? It's a very close fight, clearly. Both of them could get a decision. I really could see that. Cejudo could win with his wrestling, actually, and some striking activity. He's not going to win with power, but who could he get the higher numbers? And then, of course, negate the wrestling of Merab and even just, you know, maybe reverse him and end up on top of him, or maybe he's the one that controlling along the fence. Maybe. And Merab could win with his size, his pace, and his control, or maybe even his striking, because he was, again, doing some damage against Petr Yan. I could see that as well. So who's getting the edge? I really was about to make it even. I was so close, but honestly, I don't know how I can go against Merab. I really don't. Because the pace and the pressure is just so much. And like I said, Aljo backed up Cejudo quite a bit. Cejudo was not responding well to that forward pressure. And Merab is the definition of activity, pace, and pressure. I mean, if you look that up in the dictionary, that's Merab right there. Yeah, and not only that, I will say there is a small X factor here as well that probably, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it gets overlooked a little bit, but it kind of is, I guess. Well, I'm not saying it's completely overlooked, but a lot of people don't pay attention to it as much. And that's that Aljo is the main training partner for Merab, and the other way around as well. Which means that Aljo's last fight was against Cejudo. Merab was training with Aljo for Cejudo. So he already essentially had basically a training camp for Cejudo already. They already know it's the same coaches, same corner, you know, it's the same people. It's literally the only thing that they're swapping out is Merab for Aljo. Because Merab cornered Aljo, Aljo's going to corner Merab. It's the same thing. It's the exact same setup. They already know all of Cejudo's tricks. They already know everything about Cejudo. They already beat Cejudo. They already know what he's going to be like. So, you know, that is a factor that maybe a lot of people don't necessarily realize when these people are training together. Especially when it was a title fight. So they really went hardcore into the training there. And this, you know, this is his chance to get his title shot, Merab. I mean, he's as rock solid gets as well. Like, just like Rinya, just like Ige last week, you know, like these people are super reliable, and I rely on them for a reason, because they just win. They just do it. So I'm relying on another win for Merab. I think he's going to get it done. Then we've got the return of Ian Gary. It's Jeff Neal. It's Ian Gary, or Ian Machado Gary, whatever. I just put Gary because, honestly, Gary Machado Gary doesn't really fit on there. So I'm just going to be calling him Ian Gary. It's a lot easier. But yeah. This, of course, was scheduled a while ago, but we're getting it now. Hands of Steel Neal. Let's get into it. Oh, fuck me. I didn't write it down. I didn't write down his history, but I kind of remember a little bit off the top of my head. Of course, lost to Shavkat in the last one. Very close fight. I think it was a split decision win over Santiago Ponzinibbio. Beat the shit out of Vicente Luque. I remember that. And there was one that he lost in there, or a couple that he lost in there that I was like, ooh, maybe not great. Oh man, I think it was a close fight against Magny. Man, I can't remember. Again, this is why I write things down. I can't remember now. But the boxing is obviously what I'm going to talk about. And I make sure, again, to say boxing. I'm not saying striking. I'm saying boxing, because the kicks, not really there. But the boxing, the hands, very impressive. Very, very good, even against Shavkat. And we'll get into that. Very technical, very clean, good power, good speed. Ripped Luque apart. I mean, that really was not even close. I mean, he was wobbling all over the place. Insane striking for Neil in that fight. Stumbled Shavkat pretty bad too a couple of times, by the way. That's the only time that Shavkat has really had any adversity in the UFC at all, really. I mean, very impressive stuff. So you know he's definitely got the boxing. But he also did get pieced up a couple of times by Rakhmonov. But again, it's Shavkat. He is that good. Like, let's be real. He's that good. And did keep getting backed up, mostly because of the kicks, pace, and pressure of Shavkat. So there is that. But again, it's Shavkat. Come on. And also, by the way, did actually get backed up a little bit by Luque. So there is that, which brings me to the next point, pressure. He does not handle forward pressure as well. Oh, shit. That's why I really didn't write my notes in here. Fuck. Wow. My bad. But I do remember. I mean, I just literally said it. He did get backed up by Luque quite a bit. And I mean, he was, like I said, he was beating the shit out of Luque. And he still ended up backing up quite a bit. Did the same thing against Shavkat. So that's definitely a trend. Does not deal well with the forward pressure. And he was brutalized actually quite a bit. Oh yeah, that's the final point here. He is very tough. He was brutalized quite a bit near the end against Shavkat. Kept fighting back. Even hurt Shavkat actually in the third round there. So he did keep it close. He does have a chin. He's really, really tough. So I can't really see a finish on either side here, honestly. Well, actually, maybe for Neil. But I think this is going to be more likely a decision. And his odds are standing at plus 175. So it is one of Gary's closer fights, but Gary is still the favorite. And that's who we're going to talk about right now. Undefeated, obviously. Best competition, without a doubt, is Neil Magny. But he kind of just dismantled him, really. That truly was not even close at all. I mean, the kicks alone were insanity. You don't normally see kicks like that, but I mean, he was like wiping Magny off of his feet, dropped him multiple times with leg kicks. I mean, they were nasty. So yeah, pretty amazing against Magny, but that's really it. He has not fought anybody else that's even close to that kind of level. And of course, as I just mentioned, the striking. And this is where, again, I actually do mean striking. It's the hands, it's the kicks, it's everything. Insanely technical striking, very quick hands, and very quick kicks. Not a lot of people can kick that quick. Not a huge amount of power, I will say, but he does stumble most people with his volume and his accuracy. So he does usually knock them down. He does usually get some stumbles, some knockdowns in there, but doesn't really knock people out because he doesn't have that power. Yeah, but the striking's still insane. And of course, that really speaks to his forward pressure as well. He is usually moving forward. I will say, though, not recklessly. So not like I mentioned before about some other people, even on this card. Not completely recklessly, but it's persistent. He moves forward pretty much constantly, which is the persistent part of it, but not recklessly. So when he senses, okay, there's some danger coming back, then he moves back, resets, and then starts moving forward again. Moving forward, slips back, slip, move forward, move forward. That's his style. And it's very hard to deal with. It's very, very hard to deal with. And the movement, of course, is also very hard to deal with. He doesn't really get hit a lot. He really doesn't. So, I mean, he whenever he gets hit clean, he does seem to get dropped. But that's probably because he just doesn't get hit that often. He really does not get hit a whole lot. And never really that hard, like I said, except for Song Kanan was the one that comes to me off the top of my head. He got dropped pretty bad against him and actually almost lost that fight because of it. But other than that, he's been pretty rock solid. He is a very difficult guy to hit clean. So, I mean, even when he does get hit, he's not getting hit that hard. And the odds for him, minus 225. And like I said, one of the lower ones recently, because, I mean, he's been like a minus 500, minus 600. He's been way up there before. This is definitely one of his closer ones. And I agree. It is definitely his toughest fight yet. So, who do I think is going to win? Is it Jeff Neal? Is it Ian Gary? It's pretty close. I actually originally, on Tapology at least, thought, oh man, you know, I think I might actually be choosing Neal in this. Neal can get the KO with his crisp boxing, maybe a decision. Like I said, when he gets hit clean, when Gary gets hit clean, he does usually drop. I mean, we don't know if he can actually take this kind of a punishment from somebody like this, because we've never seen him go against a striker this good. So we don't really fully know. And Gary can do the same. He could maybe get a KO. I mean, Shavkat was dropping Neal there. He doesn't do well with the forward pressure. Maybe he gets a TKO in there too. Or maybe he just gets the decision in there. So it really is somewhat close. And I was even about to pick Neal at one point. But honestly, when I saw the tape, even though I don't like Ian Gary, I'll admit it, I don't like Ian Gary anymore. I used to like him a bit. And then just this whole last 6 months, it just, I can't take it anymore. I don't like him. But I do have to respect the skill, of course. I really actually do have to give him the edge. I have to. Another factor actually that I didn't mention is he's also 7 years younger. He's 26. He's 26. I mean, that's younger than me, for fuck's sake. I'm 28. And I don't even think that's really that old either in terms of fighting. But 26... I mean, he's still getting better, and he's really, really good at striking as it is. Neal, obviously 33, I mean, 7 years older. So, you know, there's that as well. Plus, like I said, the forward pressure, the diverse striking, the pace, and he even had some wrestling in there against Magny. Maybe he even throws in some wrestling there against Neal here. You know, that could happen as well. But yeah, I can't go against Gary in this one. When I saw the tape, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Now I remember why Gary's so good and why he's still undefeated. I don't think that Gary is going to be the champ right now. Like, I think he's going to lose pretty soon here. Like, maybe in the next fight, maybe in the one after that. I don't know. Maybe they put him against Wonder Boy in the next one and he wins that. But within these next 2 to 3 fights, he's going to get that loss in there, I think. I just don't... I don't know if he can be a champ just yet. But, I mean, he's 26. I really do think that he's going to eventually get there. I mean, at some point he's going to get there. Even if it's a Bisping-like thing. You know, even if we see him and he's 32 and he gets the title shot again, gets the win, I could see that. I think he's going to be a champ at some point. Again, even though I don't like him, I have to respect that he is probably going to win this fight. We're at the co-main event now. It's Robert Whittaker. It's Paulo Costa. Look at this Paulo Costa. I mean, the secret juice is working wonders. I wish I could have some secret juice. When is this coming out, Paulo? I want I'm going to buy a whole case of secret juice. I need it. I need it in my life. So it's Whittaker, it's Costa. We'll start, of course, with Whittaker. Only really lost to Izzy and DDP. I mean, and it was a wild KO loss to DDP, let's be real. I mean, did I see it coming? Yes, I did, actually. I actually did. My pick was DDP against Whitaker. But yeah, other than that, Whitaker has been flawless. And again, I actually even thought that he beat Adesanya the last time he fought him. I really did. I actually scored it for Whitaker. And I think really the judges could have scored it that way for sure. And his main thing, of course, is the striking. One of the cleanest, most accurate strikers in the UFC. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I don't know. I mean, we always talk about Holloway's striking. We talk about Volkanovski's striking. We talk about Adesanya's striking. We talk about people like that a lot. But you can't forget about Robert Whitaker because the striking there is pretty ridiculous. And maybe it's because he doesn't have the knockouts. I don't know. I really don't know what it is that people are missing. But seriously, the striking of this guy is pretty amazing to watch. It is so clean, so accurate, so fast. And it's the stance and it's the vision as well. The striking is very, very elite. It is top level for sure. And that really, again, it's the movement. That also plays into why his striking is so good. He moves way more than anybody in the weight class, except for probably Khamzat. I gotta say, Khamzat probably is the one that moves the most, but other than that, Whitaker is definitely moving the most, and he's extremely fast. It's the defense as well as the offense that wins him all these fights. And also, much like Cejudo, actually, the fight IQ is pretty amazing. So experienced in the title fights. I mean, I don't know how many 5-round fights this guy has had, but it's quite a few. He's fought everybody pretty much in the top 15 and beaten everybody in the top 15, except for, of course, Izzy and DDP. And most of them he beat twice. Only real mistakes, again, against Dricus. That was really his main mistake, and he kind of even said he didn't really take him as seriously as he should have. And I kind of understand, DDP doesn't really look that clean on tape, underestimated the power, the speed, and the skill of DDP, I guess, and paid the price. But he ain't losing. Well, he ain't planning on losing anyway 2 in a row, because I don't think he's ever lost 2 in a row, Whitaker. Yeah. Only second to Izzy in terms of fight IQ in this division, truly. Which is, of course, why he's at minus 275, because he just doesn't lose to anybody that's not Izzy, and, of course, DDP, I guess, at this point. On the other side, it's Paulo Costa, of course. The one huge point that I actually didn't know until I was doing the research this week, he does not have a win over anybody currently in the UFC. Let that sink in for a second. None of his wins are over people in the UFC right now. Yoel Romero, PFL Bellator. Rockhold did bare knuckle boxing. He's gone now. He's not in the UFC anymore. And I think there were a couple other ones too. Nobody in the UFC anymore. That is a problem. That is a huge problem. The striking, I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about his offense here, and I do mean offense, because it's not really just the striking, it's just his offense in general. Huge, powerful strikes, but only dangerous when he's the one moving forward and you're letting him work. That is when he's dangerous, which is why I say offensively, he's dangerous. But when he's on the retreat, when he's on the defense, not really so much, which is what I'm going to talk about here. Rockhold was exhausted. I mean, this was in Salt Lake City. This was his last fight. Rockhold, and older, by the way. Rockhold, older, much older than Costa, in Salt Lake City with the altitude. And he was, by the way, piecing him up quite a bit. I mean, Costa was landing some huge shots. But even still, even with all those things, Rockhold was still landing quite a few shots on Costa, even landed some takedowns against Costa, and was actually ended up being somewhat slow with his reactions. Relies kind of a bit on his chin. Well, actually, just in general, he's pretty slow. relies a bit on the chin, relies a bit on his size. You know, like the defense just has not been there. And that was against Vettori, that was against Rockhold, and obviously against Izzy as well. And yeah, that's a problem. Oh, shit. I did not change the color of this. That's the second time I've done this. This was supposed to be red because he keeps a low pace most of the time. And he also usually slows down quite a bit over the fight, which makes him, you know, even worse when it comes to decisions. Mostly because he's walking backwards a lot of the time. Even against Rockhold, walking backwards. Vettori walking backwards. Izzy walking backwards. And I can only imagine that that's kind of what he's going to be doing here too. So that pace obviously should be red. And that's why he's at plus 210. That and the long layoff, the injury, pulling out and all that. That is also why he's at plus 210. So who's getting the edge here? I mean, you might already kind of guess where I'm going with this. Both of them did fight Vettori. I mean, actually, did Whittaker fight him twice? I can't remember. Either way, Vettori beat Costa. So already that's a huge disadvantage. Vettori beat Costa with his speed and his pressure and his takedowns. But when Vettori fought Whittaker, Whittaker was the one who was faster and smarter and more skilled. And he couldn't take Whittaker down. So, I mean, in all three categories, in all categories, I should just say, Vettori was better than Costa. And then in all categories, Whittaker was better than Vettori. So, I mean, I think you gotta go with Whittaker on this one. I don't really know how you could go against him. Costa has always... I mean, he always has a shot at a KO, let's be real. And I mean, DDP just did this. Costa can do it too. He's got the power. But, I mean, Whittaker is just coming back now. Probably looking for a title shot, because let's be real. If he wins this fight, who is there? Who's getting a title shot against DDP? Unless it's Izzy. And I mean, unless it's Izzy at 300, I don't think he's getting the next title shot anyway, because Izzy's probably just, again, staying off. So again, Whittaker's probably fighting for a title shot here. And I can't imagine he's, taking this lightly. He's going to get a title shot out of this if he wins. I mean, he's already pretty thorough, pretty professional as it is. Again, just one hiccup in the last fight. Normally completely rock solid. He dominated Vettori, and Vettori did the same thing to Costa, so I think this should be a pretty obvious decision win for Whittaker. That's what I think. I think it's going to be a pretty clear 30-27 for Whittaker. I think that's what we're seeing. So I got to go with Whittaker. And we move on to the main event. It's main event time, folks. It's the featherweight title fight. It's Alex Volkanovski, Alexander the Great. It's Ilia Topuria on the other side. Featherweight title bout. Let's get right into it with Volkanovski. I mean, let's just get into the history, of course, a little bit. Not too much, obviously. I thought he beat Islam the first time, so already that's pretty impressive, considering that was at 155, obviously. And then in terms of the featherweights, I mean, he has dominated every single featherweight he's ever fought. So, pretty fucking good. Well-rounded. Again, I don't like to throw this out there too much. I do not usually use the words well-rounded in these slides. I don't throw it around lightly, but I have to. And most people just think about his striking. The striking is obvious. Yes, of course. He dominated Holloway in the last one. Of course. Accurate, fast, diverse striking, all three levels, kicks, body shots, head. And incredible defense, because that's really his main thing, is the striking defense. That's what he does better than anybody else. Truly better than anybody else at featherweight. But what people now need to remember, he was out-wrestling Islam at some points. Did he completely out-wrestle Islam? No, of course not. But he had his moments. He was on top of Islam. He was competing with Islam in the wrestling and the BJJ as well. So definition of well-rounded right here. Very, very well-rounded. The fight IQ, though, is another thing that separates him from pretty much everybody else. Again, actually, kind of like earlier with Whitaker, Cejudo, I meant. One of the smartest in UFC history, truly, makes very, very few mistakes. One of them, of course, being in that last fight, but makes very, very few mistakes. The only other mistake that I can really think of that he made was, of course, the guillotine against Ortega. Almost got finished like that. That was a huge mistake. But other than that, I can't even think of a single mistake that this guy has made. So, very, very impressive. The only thing he has going against him is kind of that age. He is getting slightly older. And I'm not even saying he's old. He's really not that old, but he's getting there. And it is eventually going to be a problem. Is it a problem now? I don't know, but it will be eventually, so I have to write it down there, especially since, of course, Topuria is younger. And again, I hate to say it, because I love Volkanovski, but eventually it's gonna catch up to you. Father Time is undefeated, as they say. Just like Ilia Topuria, right now, at least. That, and of course, with the KO loss, you never know, especially with age. Can he recover as fast like that? This was just a few months ago. It's definitely a factor. How big of a factor? We'll see. But I had to mention it because it is a factor. He is a slight favorite right now, but I mean, this is pretty much dead even. But slight favorite for right now for Volkanovski. Moving on to Ilia Topuria. Dominated Emmett in the last fight. I mean, really just I would say almost a complete shutout, but Emmett did have a couple of moments here and there. Got beat up by Jai Herbert, though. It was at lightweight in 2022, so he was a bit younger, because it was kind of like, a year and a half ago or a year and 10 months ago. So he was a bit younger, a bit less experienced, and remember, this was a heavyweight. And he still, not heavyweight, a lightweight. And he still rallied back to win the fight and get a brutal knockout at that. So, is it a huge factor that he was having problems with Jai Herbert? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But obviously, his main thing is boxing, of course. And again, I just said this with Cejudo. Who did I just say this with? I said this was just somebody in a few fights ago. Now I can't remember. Not striking, just boxing, because he doesn't really throw kicks. Super slick boxing combos, though. Okay power, but it's more of a cumulative effect. That's more so how he's winning these fights and how he's getting knockouts. It's not really huge one-shot power. I mean, maybe the Herbert one was a little bit, but it's more of a cumulative effect of hitting them over and over and over again throughout a round or two. That's really how he's getting it done. And, by the way, he did get hit by Emmett a few times, even in the third round, by the way, which is after he was kind of dominating him in the second round. So he was getting hit by Josh Emmett, even after all those knockdowns and all that crazy shit. Something to remember. Again, I forgot to change the colors. Shit. This is supposed to be green. Fuck. Shit. This is supposed to be green. Oh, yeah, I actually messed up the next colors, too. So this is supposed to be green. He's aggressive, which helps him a lot. He's always moving forward, and it's very difficult to deal with somebody that's always moving forward, especially when their boxing is that good. It's very difficult to deal with. This now is supposed to be red, and it's the pace, because he does not keep a high pace, even though he's moving forward, which is an interesting combination, because normally, if you're moving forward, you've also got a higher pace, because that allows you to move forward more. Topuria hasn't actually been doing that. He's been actually keeping a lower pace, but it seems like people are afraid of the striking, so they just move backwards. And that is how he's been looking so aggressive. Interesting, very interesting. But very, very low pace. And if you don't believe me, Josh Emmett, who again got completely wiped out in a couple of those rounds, actually had a higher pace. He was actually landing more strikes for the first couple rounds. And even after all 5 rounds were done, the numbers, if you just looked at the pure numbers of everything, Emmett was actually pretty close. I mean, was it that close? No. But he was only about 60, I think 60 or 70 strikes back, which if you really look at what they looked like after, you would imagine he would have been way ahead. But he really does not keep a high pace. So that is very important, specifically in this matchup. Still pissed that I messed up those colors, but I did, so whatever. We'll move on. Minus 106, that's what the odds are at for him right now. So who's getting the edge in this main event? Is it Volkanovski, Volk himself, or is it Topuria, the undefeated? I don't even really know if he's Spanish, Georgian, whatever. I don't even know. And he's German in there too. I don't know what he is, but he's very handsome, possibly... maybe even possibly in the lead for sexiest male fighter of the year, I gotta say. I'm just putting it out there. He might be getting the blue bonus for that at the end of the year. We'll see. And maybe Mackenzie Dern is getting thrown in there on the female side. We'll see as well. Very close on paper. Obviously, we've got the odds. We just showed also very close. I think it's close all around as well. Volk coming off the KO loss, getting older. Maybe Ilya gets that TKO. Maybe that speed in boxing gets the decision, you know? But Volk could also just easily do what he always does, which is outstrike them by grappling, outstrike them with his defense, really, because it's more so his counters, his defense, and then throwing in the odd punch, kick combo in there as well. That's kind of how he's doing it. He's really picking his shots. He's really accurate and makes the other person miss. Because if you can make Holloway miss that much, you can make anybody miss that much. So he could easily do that here as well. Or he could actually really just out-grapple him. Because if you're throwing around Islam a little bit, I'm pretty sure you can throw around Topuria as well. We'll see. But who's getting the edge? I gotta go with the champ. I was considering making this even, but then when I watched the tape and I thought about it a lot more and removed all the hype from the situation, I kind of think Yair Rodriguez was actually a tougher challenge than Ilya. I really do, because Yair was so dangerous everywhere. He was a knockout threat. He was much longer than Ilya as well. So he had a lot of reach. He had these crazy, wild, explosive strikes. He was more of a one-shot KO threat. And he also had crazy submissions. Whereas Ilya, I mean, sure, he has a submission win, but it's not like he's some kind of jiu-jitsu ace. Ortega couldn't even submit him. So Ilya's not going to submit him. I mean, he has no neck. The man cannot be submitted. And then I don't think he can get a KO because he always gets KOs based on his combos. But I don't think you're going to land combos like that on somebody like Volkanovski. So really, when I broke it down and thought about it a lot more, I just don't really know how Topuria is getting this win, other than he lands some crazy combo in there and gets a knockout. But again, this is also a 5-round fight. Keep that in mind too. And we saw the low pace that he kept against Josh Emmett. So he's not going to outpace Volkanovski either. So I just don't see where this is happening. And again, Volk has a crazy chin. I mean, sure, yes, kick to the head of Islam, knocked him out, sure. But other than that, his chin has been pretty amazing. So, and again, that was at lightweight as well. This is at featherweight. So I just can't see it. I just can't see it. So I had to give Volkanovski the edge, which is actually the first time I'm giving an edge in the main event on this, in this series or whatever on YouTube. So there you go. Volkanovski, that's my guy. Oh, didn't work there. There's the flourish, and we move on. We move on to the recap. Let's recap this bad boy. So, full recap of the entire card for the edge. Who's getting the edge throughout the whole card? If you didn't want to watch the whole stream, you can just watch this portion right now. I'll go through it really quickly of who's getting the edge. First up, Oban Elliott. I mean, Val Woodburn just hasn't really looked that good on tape. I haven't been impressed, so gotta go with Elliott on that one. Barlow, had to go with Barlow, because, again, his opponent... Oh, Quinlan, that's right. Quinlan taking this on short notice. Hasn't really looked that good. Keeps a low pace. Barlow has a chin. Thought he looked good. Looked better. Mingyang Zhang, absolute beast. Should get a finish over Brendan Ribeiro. So I got that there. Rinya Nakamura, I mean, that's the lock of the week for sure. I mean, he's a sniper pick. I'm just putting it out there. I mean, I don't even have... There's no surprise. Minus 1,200. He's the sniper pick. What else do I have to say? Moving on to Kopylov. I considered not giving him the edge, but I did. I gave him the edge, even though he is the underdog. I just think the striking is going to be too much. We'll see. I don't feel great about that one, and maybe this is another one that I'm going to regret on Sunday. We'll see, but I did it anyway. Then we had Merab Dvalishvili, the machine. I just think the pace is too much for Cejudo. He doesn't do well when he's being pressured like this, so I think Merab can get it done. Again, this is kind of another one where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm making a mistake here, but I'm going with it anyway. I'm going with the machine. Then we had Ian Gary. I just think he's gonna outpace Neil. Maybe, I don't know if he's gonna get a KO, but the striking, the pace of Gary should be able to win him this fight fairly, somewhat easily. Then we had Whitaker. I mean, Whitaker's beaten everybody, like I said, that's not Izzy and not DDP. So, I mean, Costa lost to Vittori. He just doesn't keep a high pace. I think Whitaker should be able to win this pretty convincingly. And then, of course, we just talked about it. It's the main event. It's Volkanovski. Again, when I watched the tape more, I mean, you can go watch the main event clip, of course, as well, which I think is linked below. We'll see. See if I remember to do that. But I just think he's much better, and I think people are playing into that fact too much that he got knocked out by Islam. Again, Islam he's a lightweight. He took it on short notice too. He's never really even been rocked too much at featherweight. I just can't see it happening. I just got Volkanovski all day, and we're getting him at a great price too, by the way. So I gotta go with him. And that is the recap of the edge. Those are the people getting the edge this week. May the MMA gods be in our favor. Hopefully we can have a winning week this week, because we've had 2 even weeks in a row. No losing weeks yet, but 2 even weeks and the winning week in the first one. So hopefully we can get another dub this week. That brings us to the best bets. The best bets of the week, of course. And that always begins with the triple play, where I take 3 people that got the edge this week, throw them into a nice little parlay, and reap the rewards, or at least try to. The first member of our triple play is Whitaker. Minus 275, that's what he's sitting at. I went through this already. That's the first leg. Whitaker just looks really good in this matchup, of course. I mean, again, Costa lost to Vittori. He doesn't have a win over anybody currently in the UFC, Paulo Costa. So, gotta go with Whitaker, minus 275. That's the first leg. Second leg is Ian Gary. Again, Neil is getting a little bit older. Gary keeps getting better. He keeps a super high striking pace. super accurate, really good, should be able to win, minus 225. He is the second member of our triple parlay, the triple play. And the final one is making his debut, Mingyang Zhang, minus 138. I just think he's going to get this knockout over Brendan Hibero. Hibero didn't look great on the Contender Series, got hit quite a bit, 2 first-round KO losses. Mingyang Zhang, absolute machine. I think he was the one that had the 9-fight KO streak finish streak headed into this fight. Should be able to keep it going. Hopefully, minus 138. We throw that all together, and that leads us to plus 240. Plus 240. A nice little parlay. Plus 240 is actually pretty good odds for us here. I like that. I like that a lot. It's looking good. I feel great about Whitaker and Gary. The only hesitant part of this is, of course, the fact that Zhang is making his debut. But on the other side, Hibero is also making his debut. So it's not like, like Peterson, where I lost last time, where he was making his debut against Pogues. When they're both making their debut, it kind of balances out. So I still feel good about it. I mean, obviously, or else I wouldn't put it in here. But yeah, plus 240. Oh, and then, of course, 1 unit, as always putting down 1 unit on the triple play. Again, might change that in the future, but for now, we're sticking with that. Next up, it's the Grand Slam, which is essentially the same thing as the triple play, but we add an extra leg in there, the 4-legger, the Grand Slam, and that opens with, of course, Rinya Nakamura, minus 1,200. Is he adding much to these odds? Maybe not. But is it going to get us a win? Hopefully. Hopefully, this is just a non-event. This one, this is just a guaranteed win, and then we move on to the other people who could fuck us over. That's what I'm hoping this one is going to be. Next up, because he's in my B slot, it's Whitaker. He's in both parlays. That's what I usually do for these. And I stand by it in this one as well. I just don't really see how Costa's going to be able to win this unless he somehow gets some wild KO like DDP did. I just don't see it happening. So Whitaker, minus 275 once again. Then we've got the champ, Volkanovski. I really was about to put this even because I was not sure if Topuria was going to be able to beat him or not. But then I watched the tape and I was like, honestly, I don't even know. The only reason why this is close is because of the KO loss against Islam. And it's like, well, he's never even really been dropped at featherweight. So it kind of just, it doesn't make any sense to be betting against Volkanovski in this case. He's just way better. He's so much more well-rounded. He's extremely good at defense. Now he's motivated after coming off of a knockout loss to prove everybody wrong, to prove that he is the real deal. I think he's a much better pick in this. So I actually put him in the parlay, and I had other people to give the edge to. I gave the edge to a lot of other people, but that tells you how much confidence I really do have in Volkanovski that I'm putting him in this. We've closed that up with another pretty close one, really, on paper. Merab, he's at minus 200. Again, I just think the pace of Merab is going to be too much for Cejudo. And, it's kind of just set up. This whole thing has been leading up to Merab winning this fight, getting the title shot. So I think that's exactly what we're going to get. Everybody's going to be like, yes, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. Volkanovski keeps his belt. Merab gets the win, gets the title shot. Whitaker gets his win, gets his title shot. And everybody's happy. I honestly think, listen, we don't have a lot of weekends where everybody's like, yeah, you know what? This is exactly what was supposed to happen. But this weekend, I think that's what we're going to see. Everybody is going to win like they're supposed to. and we're going to get this parlay. And the odds of this are a nice plus 306. I mean, obviously, because Rinya Nakamura is minus 1200, this is really more like a 3-leg parlay, but that just gives us a better chance of winning it, really. And actually, they're pretty much the same in odds as the triple play. So plus 306, that's the Grand Slam. We move on. Oh, and of course, that's half a unit on that. I always forget this part. We always do half a unit on the Grand Slam. Again, might change that in the future, but for now, we're sticking with it. Now, we've got the top dog, my favorite underdog of the week. It was the one I gave the edge to, the only underdog I gave the edge to, and really the second underdog I've ever given the edge to. It's Roman Kopylov. You know, I still definitely think that Hernandez could get the win with his cardio, you know, the pace, the outrageous pace that he keeps. But the striking of Kopylov is pretty impressive, and Hernandez gets hit a lot. And I mean, Kopylov more reliable. So I would imagine this is the best option on the entire card for the top dog. And again, he's plus 200 here. So at plus 200, why not give it a shot? Again, we're way in the green with these underdog picks. This will either push us into the stratosphere into the green, or we'll just drop down one and we're still way in the green and it doesn't matter. So I'm willing to take that risk. And again, there really weren't any other people on this card where I was like, yeah, that's a good looking underdog that I want to put some money on, except for maybe Dern. I considered Dern, but I gave Kopylov the edge. So of course he's going to be the top dog of the week. And of course that's still one unit. And this really might be one that I up to even 2 units. I might actually put 2 units on these eventually because I've been so successful with it. But for now, I'll keep it at one unit. And we'll just keep it at that for now. Then, of course, the sniper pick. I mean, I think you can probably all tell where I'm going with this. It's Rinya Nakamura. I mean, come on. He's not going to lose this fight. There's absolutely no way in hell he's losing this fight. So just take a week off, relax, you know, put your money down on this one. You'll be fine. Minus 1200. I'm putting 12 units down on this. Again, go big or go home. This is how I win profit on all these on these cards. This is how I keep the profit going with this system. Is when you have somebody like this, you put the units down. So 12 units on minus 1200, that ends up being 1 unit of profit. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but think of it this way. 1 unit of profit means that I don't have to win the underdog pick. That makes it even. If I lose the top dog and win the sniper, that washes it out. And then we just have the parlays. So, you know, it really all comes down to the parlays. And even if I lost the parlays, that's only 1.5 units down. This is why the system ends up being so successful, because unless I lose a bunch of sniper picks in a row, I'm going to be fine. So, or of course, unless some huge favorite like this loses. If Rinya Nakamura loses, I'm fucked. But really doubt that. Really, really doubt that. He, again, bet the house on this guy. He ain't losing. So, that is it for all the picks this week. We'll bring it back to the studio here. Oh, man. Oh, stretchy. What a nice way to end the show. I don't know. And this would actually be the time where I'd like to answer questions and all of that, but normally there's nobody watching, and that is the case right now too. So there aren't any questions because there's nobody here. But in the future, when hopefully I have a much, much larger audience, I would love to answer any questions, whether it's MMA, UFC related, whatever, you know. because I mean, there's other stuff outside of the UFC as well that I watch, and anything else related. I mean, you know, I have opinions on everything, but nobody here today, so we're just gonna call it a night. And I'm pretty hungry anyway, as I always am. What was I gonna say? So yeah, looking like a great card this week. I'm excited. Lots of really exciting fights on this card. I mean, the main card, fantastic. It's not UFC 299 or UFC 300, but it is still a very, very good, very exciting card. So, still going to be one to watch, that's for sure. What was I going to say? See, this is why I need to write my outro down. I still forgot to do it. Fuck. Thanks for watching, everybody. All the socials are down below. I also always clip up the different segments and put them down below, which I forgot to actually link in the last few streams. I should really do that. I forgot. Hopefully I remember to do that today. And yeah, so thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you next time.